In the heart of Central Africa lies a story so dark it has been deliberately buried by the hands of history. This is the story of the Congo Free State, a land promised civilization, but delivered a nightmare. It's a tale of greed, unimaginable cruelty, and a king who turned a vast, rich territory into his personal abattoir. Imagine, it's the late 19th century. The great powers of Europe are carving up Africa like a cake. At the Berlin Conference of 1884-1885, one man, King Leopold II of Belgium, presents himself as a great humanitarian. He speaks of bringing progress, of ending the slave trade, and of opening the Congo to free trade for all. The world's leaders, eager to avoid conflict among themselves, grant him personal control over a territory 76 times the size of his own country. They called it the Congo Free State, a tragic misnomer if there ever was one. Leopold's philanthropic promises were a mask for his insatiable greed. He had no intention of helping the Congolese people. His goal was singular, to extract as much wealth as possible. At first, the prize was ivory, but soon, a new global demand would unleash a level of terror the world had scarcely seen. That demand was for rubber. The invention of the pneumatic tire by John Dunlop in 1888 created a rubber boom. Suddenly, the wild rubber vines of the Congo's rainforests were worth a fortune. For King Leopold, this was his golden opportunity. For the people of the Congo, it was the beginning of an apocalypse. To enforce his will, Leopold created a private army called the Force Publique. This militia was made up of Belgian officers and African soldiers, often recruited from rival tribes or even kidnapped as children and raised in brutal military camps. Their mission was simple: force the Congolese population to meet impossibly high rubber quotas. The system was diabolical. Men were forced deep into the treacherous jungle for weeks at a time to tap the wild rubber vines. It was dangerous, back-breaking work. They had to climb tall trees, often falling to their deaths. The process of collecting the sticky latex was painful, sometimes requiring them to smear it on their own bodies and painfully scrape it off, taking skin and hair with it. If a man failed to meet his quota, the punishment was swift and horrific. The Force Publique was ordered to not waste expensive bullets. As proof that they hadn't used their ammunition for hunting, they were required to bring back a severed hand for every bullet fired. Soon, this gruesome practice morphed into a form of currency and terror. If a village failed to deliver its quota, soldiers would raid it, massacring its inhabitants and hacking off hands, the hands of men, women, and even small children. Baskets of severed hands became a horrifying symbol of Leopold's regime. It was a calculated system of terror designed to break the will of the people. Villages were burned, families were torn apart. Women and children were held hostage in concentration camps, starved and abused until their husbands and fathers brought back the required amount of rubber. One missionary described the scene. "I saw a young man holding a small bundle. He opened it, and it was the hand and foot of his little girl. The soldiers had killed his wife and child and eaten them. They then told him to take the hand and foot to the white man as proof of his kill." This was the reality for millions. The cost in human life was staggering. Historians estimate that during Leopold's 23-year reign, the population of the Congo was cut in half. As many as 10 to 15 million people perished. They died from the massacres, from the brutal working conditions, from starvation, as they could no longer farm their own land, and from diseases that swept through the weakened, traumatized population. It was a democide driven entirely by one man's lust for profit. So how did this happen in plain sight? How did a king get away with genocide? For years, Leopold ran a masterful propaganda campaign. He portrayed himself as a benevolent ruler, fighting slavery and bringing Christianity to the dark continent. He hired lobbyists and journalists to paint a rosy picture of his civilizing mission. The remoteness of the Congo and the racism of the era meant that few in Europe or America cared to look too closely at what was happening to Africans far away. But the truth could not stay buried forever. A few brave individuals began to expose the horror. One of the first was George Washington Williams, an African-American historian and journalist who traveled to the Congo in 1890. He was appalled by what he saw and wrote a scathing open letter to King Leopold detailing the abuses. Missionaries like the American William Shepherd and the Swedish Albin Svan witnessed the atrocities firsthand and began to send back reports and photographs. These images, showing mutilated children and men in chains, were shocking and undeniable. The real turning point, however, came with a shipping clerk from Liverpool named Edmund Dean Morel. While working for a shipping company that held the Congo monopoly, Morel noticed something strange. Ships arrived from the Congo laden with valuable rubber and ivory, but the ships going back carried almost nothing but soldiers, guns, and ammunition. There was no real trade. He deduced correctly that the Congo was not a free state at all, but a slave state. Morel quit his job and dedicated his life to exposing Leopold. He founded the Congo Reform Association, one of history's first great human rights campaigns. He worked with authors like Mark Twain, who wrote a scathing satire called King Leopold's Soliloquy, and Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, who penned The Crime of the Congo. Together, their tireless efforts created an international outcry. Protests erupted across Europe and the United States. Under immense pressure, Leopold was finally forced to relinquish his personal control. In 1908, the Congo Free State was officially handed over to the Belgian government, becoming the Belgian Congo. Leopold, however, never faced justice for his crimes. He had made a colossal fortune, which he used to build extravagant palaces and monuments across Belgium, many of which still stand today. Before handing over the colony, he ordered the complete destruction of the state archives, burning mountains of documents for 8 days straight to hide the true extent of his monstrous regime. The story of the Congo Free State is a chilling reminder of how unchecked power and greed, combined with racial prejudice, can lead to human suffering on an almost unimaginable scale. It's a history that has been deliberately obscured, but one that must be remembered. The scars of Leopold's rule run deep in the Congo, and its echoes can still be felt today. Thank you for joining me on this difficult but important journey into the past. If you found this video informative, please give it a like and subscribe for more deep dives into history's hidden stories. And please, share this video. It's crucial that we don't let these millions of victims be forgotten. See you next time.